Welcome to Global Reports, once again on Liberty Television, here in our Kaduna Studios. With me, Arthur Brooks. Welcome to our viewers across Nigeria on Star Times, Go TV, Free TV and Multi TV, and across West Africa and across Nigeria, and to our many friends worldwide on watching live on the internet and on YouTube. As usual, as a live program, we follow the trending and most popular news stories from around the world from the past week. Our guests this week are renowned scholar Professor Khalifa Dikwa and Ferdinand Okonkwo. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me. Yes.
Okay, this week we are going to kick off, let's start, with the ongoing mystery of the missing Saudi Arabian journalist. That is Jamal Khashoggi. Watch this short report from the US CBS network.
World War I Museum and Memorial. This year's the World War I Museum and Memorial. This year's the 100th anniversary of the end of what was once called the War to End All Wars. We have come to Missouri as part of our special coverage of races that will decide control of the U.S. Senate in the midterms next month. We're going to have much more on that soon, but we're going to begin tonight with breaking news in the disappearance nearly 2 weeks ago of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. CBS News has learned tonight the Saudis are ready to reveal what happened to him. Major Garrett is at the White House with more.
President Trump emerged from a 20-minute call with Saudi King Salman and echoed the kingdom's denial of responsibility for the suspected death of U.S.-based journalist Jamal Khashoggi.
All I can do is report what he told me, and he told me in a very firm way that they had no knowledge of it.
Mr. Trump also raised this possible explanation.
It sounded to me like maybe these could have been rogue killers.
That theory has not been embraced by Saudi leadership, who CBS News has learned is preparing to admit that Khashoggi's death was the result of an interrogation gone wrong. Khashoggi, a Washington Post contributor and outspoken critic of the Saudi regime, entered the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, Turkey on October 2nd, but has not been seen since. The Saudis have insisted he left on his own. At the president's direction, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo flew to Riyadh today for meetings with the royal family.
He's got instructions to find out what happened.
He may next head to Turkey, where investigators today searched the consulate, part of a Turkish-Saudi inquiry into the disappearance. The president told Leslie Stahl of 60 Minutes his relationship to the kingdom might change if Khashoggi's death is confirmed.
We're going to get to the bottom of it, and there will be severe punishment.
But the president said he would not end a $110 billion Saudi arms deal.
Boeing, Lockheed, Raytheon, all these I don't want to hurt jobs.
Former acting CIA director and CBS contributor Michael Morrell.
I think if the Saudis were involved in this, you will see some delay in arms sales, despite what the president says.
The Khashoggi saga has jeopardized foreign investment in the kingdom and raised the real possibility of U.S. sanctions. According to sources, the emerging, and that's a key word, emerging Saudi explanation is the government meant only to interrogate the journalist, not kill him, and that those responsible were initially reluctant to admit their deadly blunder. It is unclear if this account will defuse the crisis or satisfy the kingdom's many human rights skeptics. Jeff? All right, Major, with the latest on that emerging explanation.
Yep, this story is going on and on. We started this story last week, and there's some indication this week, in fact yesterday, that there are some reports that there's some admission apparently, but we'll find out later that there was an interrogation and the journalist died under mysterious circumstances during the interrogation. Prof, you're a
yes.
fan of the subject.
Obviously, it's not just about investigation again. Obviously, by evidence, rock-solid evidence, it is there that it was under the instruction of these, the Saudi, particularly the Crown Prince and so on, because his own bodyguard is among them. When the 15 squad member landed in anticipation of Khashoggi going into the council, they hired 2 jets, private jets, and this is not possible for just somebody who is just a worker like that to land and then, and suddenly the irony is that they are so childish that they don't even used little intelligence that the camera stopped working after Khashoggi was in. So they said he was in, and then he left on his own. And now telling the world that he left on his own without showing anything. Again, he had a smart watch. That is synced with his fiancée outside about the early interrogation and so on that went violent somehow, something like that. And Turkey intelligence says this, that I also buy the idea of the United Nations now asking that immunity be lifted, not be 100% for counselor, because there are dictators in this world who have been doing this thing for long, killing journalists who have been exposing their atrocities and so on. Therefore, the stand of the United Nations is good. Again, this particular case, the evidence Turkey had shared with the U.S. intelligence, and that cannot just say Trump is just about a $110 billion deal about arms. That is his worry. Not that he's worried about who is there and so on. And that the Congress has already taken a position that he said, like Senator Lindsey Graham, who is a Republican, said, Mohammed bin Salman is not a good, let them look for somebody else. And then 20 senators have already written that this thing is like this, and then there must be sanctions against Saudi Arabia. And lastly, let me also say to Africans and other countries who are listening to us that the extreme views in the name of Islam, the violence, the killings, and so on, was came through countries like Saudi Arabia, and so in the name of Islam and so on. Those extremes, all these scholars that had the opportunity of going to Egypt, Medina, and so on, they must review their thing and then get back to the original Islam of peace. After all, America itself said Saudi Arabia must go back to its original Islam. So all these violent, extreme views and so on, and do not have any space in our religious belief. And so, by virtue of that thing, we've been able. The world now is dealing with atrocities in the Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, and so on. This doctrine of violence, ideology, to the extent that if a journalist could be invited in, killed, then mutilated, and put into a box and so on. So what is now to tell you that this kind of thing is the one that is now being copied by others? Apart from Islamic countries, it sends a message to other extreme countries. If you have a problem with a journalist, you just shut him up. And imagine a world without journalists. You are finished. Ferdinand, please come in here.
My brother is appalling. I am appalled. You know why? Even the mentality of the executioners is showing that they don't have any regard again for mankind. They don't have any regard again for humanity. How in the whole world they believe that anybody will believe them that this man, having walked into the consulate, and then will just disappear like air? 15 of them for one person. Disappear like air? So, for crying out loud, didn't come to Istanbul weekend party. What is the security risk of a journalist that is not a competitor in your own country, either as a leader or a successor or whatever? His sin is simply voicing out. Voicing out. Writing. So, the minority will not have their say again, while the majority have their way. Well, we are just seeing what and will all expose the imperialists. Yes, the status. Their own, hide and seek game. One thing is good for the gander, the other one is good for the goose. Look, America, Trump issued what you call political statement that Saudi will be punished. And later on changes. Saudi issued an economic threat. Trump reversed his threat. And now he's considering the economic consequences.
More important than
important
than the human life
of the people that to show you the imperialist mentality. They don't care whether 1 million of us are dying. They don't care. And this is a lesson to African leaders.
And what is Trump?
Mr.
Brook.
We will report this matter to the international group.
And what is Trump doing now? He's tweeting about his
Yes, I always said that Trump is a blessing in disguise because he has been exposing all these things that are behind the scene. So this violent attitude was created as a counterforce to Iran, just for regional superiority. When revolution of 1979 took out a Shah of Iran at that time, a crony of America. And then all these interests, it's about oil and resources. Saudi Arabia, high rate of unemployment, the high rate of poverty. All the petrodollars and so on being used in order to create problems for the world. And that it is high time the United Nations stood up to its own responsibility. Real one.
Exactly.
Then it is not about selling arms and so on, about human lives.
Now, gentlemen, I think we've exhausted, well, we're not exhausted,
no,
we've said enough on that subject. Here in Nigeria...
And lastly,
last week,
I forgot to add that Trump alone, even if he vetoes it, it cannot go alone, because in 1981, when Ronald Reagan did not want to impose sanctions on South Africa, apartheid South Africa, the Congress went ahead and did it, bypassed it. And therefore, it is possible that if Trump avoids taking any sanction against Congress, the Kingdom of Saudi, the Congress will go ahead and do something.
I hope they've got the majority to do it. Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's move on. Here in Nigeria last week, President signed an executive order restricting movements, particularly on overseas travel, for 50 high-profile Nigerians on the watch list of immigration services and other security organizations. Let's watch parts of this report from Channels TV here in Nigeria.
The federal government to place a travel restriction on no fewer than 50 high-profile Nigerians who are on the watch list of the Immigration Service and other security agencies, pending the determination of their cases. The restriction is contained in a statement from the presidency asking the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice to immediately begin the full implementation of the Executive Order 6 following its judicial affirmation on Friday. The statement adds that the financial transactions of these persons of interest are being monitored by the relevant agencies to ensure that the assets are not tampered with and such persons do not interfere with ongoing investigations and litigation processes. The statement says, quote, "It is instructive to note that EO6 was specifically directed to relevant law enforcement agencies to ensure that all assets within a minimum value of 50 million naira or equivalent, subject to investigation or litigation, are protected from dissipation by employing all available lawful means pending the final determination of any corruption-related matter." End of quote. But the statement did not state the names of the high-profile persons. It, however, promises the federal government's resolve to uphold the rule of law and the protection of the rights of its citizens. Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, has rejected and described the federal government's travel ban on 50 unnamed high-profile Nigerians as illegal, an attempt by the Buhari administration to foist a full-blown fascism on Nigeria. A statement signed by the PDP's National Publicity Secretary, Mr. Kola Ologbodiyan, reads in part, "This draconian step is clearly targeted at members of the opposition parties, perceived political enemies of President Muhammadu Buhari." Is a legal practitioner and former second vice president of the Nigeria Bar Association. Mr. Mondo, I want to thank you so much indeed for joining us.
This executive order.
Yes.
Prof, would you like to talk about this?
Yes, I've been campaigning about it since 2015.
Okay.
When by 2016, when I realized that all the bill submitted by President on establishing special courts to try mega looters and so on were sat upon. Then I led my group in order to campaign for executive orders, which was constitutional. Executive orders to do such a thing. But somehow the government was so slow to, I was not happy with the sluggishness of the government at that time.
The executive orders were made by the presidents.
Yes, by the president.
They were not followed up on.
No, they were not followed up on.
Not that you.
Yes, waiting for Mr. President for the recalcitrant to now repent and come back. Waiting, and then immediately you say. The PDP now is saying it is meant at emasculating the opposition. Who are those in power for 16 years between 1999 and 2015? And by the way, some of them came into APC, and they are also mentioned. The issue of saying even 50 does not even arise because the ban was already imposed on them by the courts, because they have cases where they had to submit the passports. And therefore, the number shouldn't be just 50. It is about establishing this thing, and then let us start from somewhere. I'm not happy that it came late. It ought to have come from the moment we started campaigning, or back in 2016 when the National Assembly refused to pass the bill on establishing all these things. And that even those of us who are in senior, who finished their university degrees in the early 80s and so on, they had loans with which to buy a Beetle. And then any additional Beetle or Toyota, if you bought something more than the Beetle and that Toyota, questions were asked where you got the additional money. Today, nobody is asking, provided you provide this money. And therefore, this thing is that, Ferdinand, you and I know that looting the resources, for instance, meant for the health establishment, looting it is a criminal thing, that you are denying the health institutions from getting things that will work for the people. You are denying from constructing roads for the benefit of the people. In the process, people get killed in accidents. For you are denied the security agencies from getting the materials, the guns, and so on to fight insurgency and crimes. Invariably, you exposed many people to all these people are supposed to be dealt with in terms of, say, based on this prima facie evidence. You are guilty until proven innocent.
It's interesting you mentioned being able to afford more than a Beetle or a Toyota. We're talking of a few thousand naira in those days. Now, this one, I believe they're talking of amounts excess of 50 billion naira.
Nobody stays in millions.
That's a rather large difference.
Those who are stealing in million are the small criminals. Those who are the rockers of the issue are those stealing in billions. Look, my only problem is that this
Ferdinand, they are so shameless that they will go and challenge federal government.
You understand?
With many senior advocates.
At the wrong time.
That's
timing always my problem.
The timing.
You see,
it's very slow.
Everything in this country is
4 years, almost 4 years in.
Everything is
very slow.
We politicize everything. Everything is interpreted in the prison of political gain. What we will gain and what we will not gain. What stops this administration from bringing up this thing 2 years ago?
Exactly.
That is the right thing. This is the right thing to do.
When we suggested
this is the right way to go. People must be accountable. People must be accountable. If you must have access to that public purse, be ready to account for it. But in this country, any day you wake up to hold somebody accountable, even the masses will go against you. This is the problem.
When we talked about it,
these are the people. Now somebody is crying. This is meant to emasculate the opposition. When you have been in power for 16 years and trillions of naira have gone down the drain, and you will just wake up today, and because you are shouting, they are emasculating opposition, every Nigerian will say, oh, Shebe for you.
And
This is
how many of those criminals has actually been fully prosecuted?
Most of them are now running to APC to find cover. And this is the irony of it.
Returns a few
when
million
they
and
get
then
there, the ruling party will surely give them the cover.
They're not supposed to do
That
so.
is why
They are
everybody
common
is crying
enemies.
that there is no fight against corruption. That is the basis. The basis is that when you do selective fight,
APC,
it is even worse than the fight itself.
APC should
It's
not,
better you don't even fight at all than doing selective fight.
APC.
This is what we have been praying for. We said, come up with this. If you wait for these people, what are they doing? They finish stealing from the state, they now find themselves at the National Assembly, become senators, honorable members, go there to hide, find a way of hiding their resources. Look at the way they are showing them everywhere, hiding dollars, hiding pounds, hiding naira, in their ceilings, in their
We have senators who do their election from the prison cells.
Yes, and somebody won from the
But my joy is, thank God, that something is being done.
We are beginning.
No matter how and when it is done, thank God, something is beginning to be done. Whether you call it selective or not, let it start with something.
Well, I hope it,
because the
hope
battle
it
must
doesn't
start
remain
with someone.
toothless.
Then now, my second headache is that President Buhari is unable to detect the moles within that asked him to delay the executive orders from the day we spoke about it. And then the same malls were delayed, were not allowing Mr. President to release funds. All this money in TSA, and we so-called, we have it in our foreign deposit. You use money to get more money. For goodness sake, get our prosecutors, get the young ones, all these senior advocates and so on. Some of them, they don't know how they got it. They are defending the bad ones. And therefore, it is high time for us, for the judiciary to purge itself. And therefore, both of them, the legislature
this started,
and the executive,
some year ago, wasn't it?
they are in both government and so on.
Senior judges were prosecuted.
Yes, exactly. And they are given, among them there are judges, among them senators, governors who are jailed and so on. The truth is that
Corruption
we have
is
to start
endemic in
somewhere.
Nigeria.
Why now?
So you must start somewhere.
We started, we
Close
talked
your
about
ears on selective fight. Start from somewhere.
Those who have been following me on social media, I've been talking about it since 2016. And then it came 1 year later in July 5th, President Buhari submitted it. And then the malls would then quickly run out and said they have taken the government to court. For goodness sake. And then you have smart boys who are younger at the certain level. You just give them the nitty-gritty, the little logistics, in order to go and checkmate the so-called senior advocates of Nigeria, so that they allow you to work for 200 million people. Again, the National Assembly, of them who were part of the looting in the past, will never allow you to do anything.
Fortunately, our time is up.
It is better late than never.
And I thanks to my worthy guests. Thank you, Ferdinand.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Prof.
Yes.
And thank you to the cameraman. Thank you to our crew in the control room and our Liberty Global Reports production crew. And I repeat, thanks to my special guests.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is Arthur Brooks signing out. Join me next Wednesday, same time. Have a great week. And keep watching Liberty Television.
It's not just about the individual news item, it's all about what's behind the news story. What went on before, now and after.
We report today not from Kaduna, Nigeria, but from Liverpool in the United Kingdom. Slavery Museum in Liverpool. Dr. Benjamin.
No personal attack on candidates.
Okay, thank you very much. Ray TV Liverpool. I'm here with Chris Kerr, who is one of the team that runs this remarkable little station.
My background is that I'd spent quite a lot of time working for Bernardo Television as a reporter and producer, and I lived in Liverpool for most of my life, and I've had a very strong interest in doing something in the way of more local television, more than the regional service which Bernardo and the BBC offer.
This is Arthur Brooks signing off from Liberty Global Reports, and have a very good week.
Thank you, Saidu, for coming on the programme.
My pleasure.
And please check out our Facebook page.